All right, for this section of notes, we are going to be looking at who really discovered America. And last week, I had you guys read 9 different groups who claimed to have discovered America, whether it was the Chinese, the first successful settlement of Jamestown, um, the Norse, the Clovis culture, so on and so forth. Based on your guys' responses, and this typically happens every year, most of you would agree that Columbus doesn't really get or shouldn't get the credit for the discovery of America, and that it really belongs to the Norse or the Vikings, right? Because there was proof that they were there about 500 years earlier. We'll talk about Columbus in a little bit, but one of the things that Columbus does get credit for is what we call this age of exploration. That if it wasn't for Columbus sailing west, the world as we know it today wouldn't be known. Or probably someone else would have done it at a later time, but again, that would have changed the course of history. So, what exactly were the European motives for exploration? Well, when you're looking at those motives, think about the 3 G's: God, gold, and glory, right? Those are really the 3 main reasons that Europeans were basically looking to explore. At the time, Europe, Asia, Africa had pretty much all been conquered. They were well aware of those territories, and pretty much everything had been claimed. In Asia specifically, there was a lot of commercial value, right? Lots of spices, lots of good that the Europeans wanted to get their hands on, and a quicker way to get to those things. So that's going to be one of the main motives for exploration. So one of the main reasons the Europeans wanted to explore was a desire to Christianize. In Europe, you have various religions that kind of take hold of the area for centuries, but eventually Christianity is going to emerge as the most popular religion. You can even say Catholicism as well. And even though Christianity and Catholicism really fall under the same branch as both being Christian, I would say your hardcore Catholics would feel differently. They feel that Catholicism is completely separate from Christianity. This really just depends on your personal belief. But King Henry VIII, who's one of the most famous kings to emerge from England, he very famously couldn't have a son with his wife. She kept having girls. He kept thinking it was her fault. We know now that wasn't true. The man decides what the sex of the baby is going to be. And so he decided that he wanted a divorce. However, if you know anything about the Catholic Church, they frown upon divorce. They're not really a fan. So King Henry VIII basically tells the Catholic Church, screw you, I'm going to create my own church. And he creates the Church of England, which becomes one of the modern day forms of Christianity. Because of this, there was a desire to spread this belief in God, not just in Europe, but really across the world. And so if you're exploring more and getting into new territories, then you can continue to spread your religious beliefs. The one good thing about religion, or I would say why they were so keen on spreading religion, is that if everyone believes in the same thing, it's a lot easier to get people to be submissive and want to listen to you. So the idea is if you got everyone believing in the same type of religion or God, it was going to make it a lot easier to dominate people and territories. And of course, we know that Europe was desperate for goods from Asia and the Middle East, and they needed a faster and cheaper method of getting there. At the time, that there were really only 2 ways that they knew how to get to Asia and the Middle East. It was going across land. So let's say you were in England, you'd have to go all through Europe before you were able to get to Asia. The other route was you could sail. So you would literally have to sail around Africa in order to get to Asia. And they sort of realized this was a very inefficient way of getting to Asia and of getting the goods that they wanted. At this time, you have about 4 major power players in Europe: the English, the Spanish, the French, and the Portuguese. And we see their influence in the Americas even today. In Canada, people predominantly speak English and French. In the United States, we predominantly speak English. If you go to the New Orleans area, you see a lot of the French influence there, especially if you're a fan of the New Orleans Saints. Their symbol is the fleur-de-lis, right? That is a traditional French symbol. In pretty much all Latin American countries, whether it's Mexico, Costa Rica, Venezuela, Argentina, they pretty much all speak Spanish. There's only one South American country that doesn't speak Spanish. That's Brazil. They speak predominantly Portuguese. So you can see the influence of those 4 major power players in Europe, in the Americas, even today. And of course, power and influence, and there's rivalries with other nations. So because the Spanish, the French, the Portuguese, and the English emerge as your major power players in the world at this time, they're competing with one another, right? They want to be able to get the upper hand. And how do they do that? Well, the more territory you have, the more goods and services that you have to sell, the more money you make, the more power and influence that you have. And again, they really wanted to find a faster way to get to Asia and to get to the Middle East, to get to those goods. And whoever was able really to be able to find it first would probably emerge as the more powerful country and more powerful, dominant power player throughout the world. So they really were competing with one another to really kind of prove who was better than the other. So why exactly did Columbus make his voyage? So Columbus very famously sails for Spain, but he wasn't Spanish, he was Italian, and he was convinced that he could reach Asia faster by sailing west. And Columbus was very well aware of the four major power players in Europe: the English, the French, the Portuguese, and the Spanish, and he had actually approached all four to try to get them to sponsor the voyage. He went to the French, explained his plan. They said no. They really thought that his calculations were off. He went to the English, explained his plan. They also said no, felt that his calculations were off. He went to the Portuguese, explained, his plan to sail west. They felt his calculations were off. He said no. Finally, he gets to the Spanish. The Spanish take a look at his plan, and they agree to go ahead and fund him. And fortunately for the Spanish, Columbus is going to be very successful. In October of 1492, he ends up arriving in the Americas. Does he arrive in the United States, or what we now know as the United States? No, he lands on the present-day island of San Salvador. So he really lands in the Caribbean. And then, of course, we know that he calls the people there Indians because he initially thought that he was in India. Did he really think he was in India? Yes and no. It very quickly became apparent that they weren't in India. They didn't speak the language. The people had no idea what things were, such as iron, metal, things like that. And so once they discovered that, they were like, okay, this is definitely new land. This isn't India. Like I said, most of us, I think, would agree Columbus didn't discover the Americas, but again, he does start this age of exploration. Columbus has been in the news quite a bit lately because people were like, he was a slave owner. Yes, he was. There were quite a few people that were slave owners. But besides owning slaves, Columbus wasn't necessarily the nicest guy. He'd actually sailed to the Americas about 4 different times, and he actually ended up being governor of what is present day the Dominican Republic. And while he was there, and really just while he was kind of making his voyages, he really treated the Native Americans or the Indians, the indigenous people, whatever you want to call them, pretty horribly. He was known for taking babies from their parents and feeding them to dogs to basically scare them into submission. If people didn't work hard enough or collect enough gold, he would cut off their hands. He was really known for treating the people badly. He became very aware very quickly that smallpox and disease was killing these people, so he would intentionally give them blankets infected with smallpox so that way they could die faster and they could conquer the territory a lot quicker. But he did not have respect for the indigenous people that were living in these territories. As a result, people are going to kind of turn on Columbus. He's eventually going to be stripped of his governorship of the present day of the Dominican Republic, and eventually he'll die in Spain. But Columbus, again, did he discover America? No, but he does get credit for this age of exploration. So this is just to kind of give you an idea of why that they were looking to explore. So if you're here in Spain, you literally had to go all the way across Europe as well as the Middle Eastern area in order to get to Asia. You could also sail around, but these ways became extremely inefficient. So the idea was if you sail west, you'll get to India a lot quicker. But of course, they ended up discovering brand new land. So how exactly was it possible for Columbus to conquer the new land? Well, for one, Columbus and his people, they frankly just had better materials. Again, they had things like iron and swords that the indigenous people frankly just did not have. And a little kind of DBQ that you're going to read tomorrow, Columbus talks about the fact that he felt these indigenous people were incredibly stupid because when they saw iron, they would grab it by the blade rather by the handle. And he was like, oh my God, these people are so dumb. Well, frankly, they just didn't know. They had never seen iron before. You can kind of compare it to like when a little kid sees like the flame on the stove and like your parents tell you don't put your hand over it and you do. And then once you burn your hand, you learn your lesson. That was really the indigenous people with weapons like swords and sharp iron and things like that. But of course, the Spanish, the English, the French, and the Portuguese, who really all trek over to the Americas at some point, they didn't just have better materials, they had something else. And that was an immune system that was able to fight off smallpox. Now, there were lots of people who had died from smallpox, but to the natives that were living in the Americas, they had never been into contact with it before. And an estimated 90% of Native Americans were going to be killed due to this European disease. Smallpox doesn't really exist anymore. There was a vaccine that gets developed in the late 1700s. But just know this, that smallpox and specifically disease in general is what's really going to kill most of the Native Americans, right? Because again, they didn't have immune systems. They were able to be built up to fight off these new diseases. Because they'd never been in contact with any Europeans before, it was new to them. And so as a result, it's going to end up killing them off at a very, very, very quick rate. And if you notice looking at the smallpox, it does not look like a fun disease to have. It doesn't even look like chickenpox. I've never even seen chickenpox that bad. So smallpox, definitely not fun, not something that you want to get. But like I said, we developed a vaccine in the late 1700s. So it's not really something that you hear of much anymore. Yeah, we can ignore all that part. So what exactly were the results of the contact between the Native Americans and the Europeans? Well, for the Europeans, you're going to get global empires for the first time in human history. We know that the world has 7 continents, and that we know that really before 1492, North and South America really hadn't been discovered. So at this point, only the Eastern hemisphere had really been conquered. So that's Asia, Europe, Africa, Australia at this point had also been sort of conquered, but you have the new territories of North and South America that are going to be found. Because of that, you're now going to have global empires. And again, the French, the Spanish, the English, and the Portuguese are really going to emerge as those major power players. And based on the languages that are spoken in North and South America, we can definitely see their influence even today. Of course, you're also going to have the explosion of capitalism, which is commercial revolution. Capitalism is making a profit by buying and selling goods and services. So because of the fact that you're going to have the old world, so kind of Europe, Asia, and Africa, that come into contact with the new world, which is North and South America, you're going to have new products that end up getting discovered. Most of you probably know this as the Columbian Exchange. Of course, it's named after Christopher Columbus, but to kind of give you an idea of some of the new foods and products that were being exchanged. With animals, in the old world, you had goats, horses, pigs, sheep, chicken, cow. In the new world, you had turkey, guinea pigs, llamas. Those are going to be exchanged between the 2 countries. For plants, in the old world, you had almonds, bananas, carrots, coffee, olives, peaches, pears, sugarcane, wheat, watermelon. Those are going to be exchanged with the New World. Items like potatoes, pineapples, squash, cacao or cocoa, chili powder, peanuts, avocados. So a lot of the foods that we eat today, right, they get introduced to us because of this Columbian Exchange. And then, of course, unfortunately, diseases are also going to be exchanged. Things like syphilis, yellow fever, smallpox, tuberculosis, influenza, which is the flu, measles, all these unfortunately deadly diseases. So you do get some good things that come out of the exchange, obviously plants and food and animals, and then of course you get some bad things that come out of the exchange. That's going to be diseases, but unfortunately it's just something that happens. And so because of this exchange of goods and services, that means that people and really countries are going to be able to make more money. And so you're going to revolutionize this international economy. Even today, we really have a global economy, right? Most of our products are made in China. Most things aren't made in America. If you were to look at your shirts or probably any products that you have, you'll see made in Taiwan, made in China, made in India, made in wherever. A lot of things aren't made in America. So we really do rely on this global economy to be able to produce goods and services to have. And again, because of this Columbian exchange, there's going to be a revolution in diet. Things like potatoes, corns, and beans is going to lead to higher mortality rate because people are able to live longer, which also means that you're going to get larger populations. And there's going to be a big push for immigration, meaning people would leave Europe or Asia and come to the Americas to help colonize those territories. We know that the higher population definitely exists. Today you have well over 7 billion people on Earth, and that number, of course, is just growing. Jamestown very famously becomes the most successful settlement, or becomes the first successful settlement in the Americas. But Jamestown almost nearly turns out to be an utter and complete disaster. So it nearly failed due to starvation, disease, and attacks by the Powhatans. The Powhatan tribe should seem pretty familiar. Disney back in the 90s made a very famous movie called Pocahontas. If you've seen that movie before, the movie Pocahontas takes a very fairy tale twist on Jamestown, as well as the two other main characters, John Smith and John Rolfe. In the Pocahontas version of Disney, John Rolfe is the enemy, and John Smith is like this great guy. And in the movie, Pocahontas and John Smith, they end up falling in love and they end up getting married. That's actually not what happens in real life. In real life, Pocahontas actually marries John Rolfe, not John Smith. And she's eventually going to move to England to be with John Rolfe. When she arrives in England, she's no longer known as Pocahontas. She actually is given a Christian English name. She ends up going by Rebecca, and she ends up dying at the age of 22 of disease. So Pocahontas does not marry John Smith. She marries John Rolfe. John Smith, however, he was in Jamestown, and his account of what happened in Jamestown, it's really sort of shaky at best. The best way to describe John Smith is that he's kind of a douchebag. Like, that's really the best way to describe him. Like, he was this guy who, like, thought he was God's gift to earth, and that without him, like, nobody would have been successful. And people just aren't sure how true that really is. We do know that John Smith does get captured by the Powhatan tribe. He's supposedly saved by Pocahontas, but there's the evidence to support that is shaky at best. But John Smith wouldn't have survived without the Powhatan tribe, right? They're going to end up eventually helping the English out, so they don't basically starve to death. And in 1607, which is when Jamestown was first successfully, is when it becomes the first successful settlement. 15 years after that, John Smith writes this book, and even in the book, he basically makes it sound like if it wasn't for him, Jamestown wouldn't have been a success, and that's not true. He was really just kind of like a pawn and just sort of happened to be there when it turned out to be a success. But there's no doubt that the Powhatans really helped the Englishmen help Jamestown survive. John Rolfe is going to be introduced to a new tough strain of tobacco given to him by the Powhatans, and this is going to be huge for the Europeans. If there's one thing we know about tobacco, is that it's addictive. And if you are selling something that's addictive, you're going to continuously have repeat customers, which means that it's going to end up making a lot of money for the Europeans. So tobacco is what's really going to help the Europeans survive in the Americas and what's going to help Jamestown eventually become successful. Once tobacco was introduced and once the Europeans realized they can exploit tobacco and make a ton of money off of it, the plantation system is going to emerge. And we know that the plantation system in America is really only going to work off the backbones of slavery.